My message to Americans tonight is simple. We do not have to live this way. We don't. We don't, and we won't. We won't. We do not have to settle for weakness, incompetence, decline, and decay. With your vote tomorrow, we can fix every single problem our country faces and lead America.
It is time for a new generation of leadership in America, and I am ready to offer that leadership as the next president of the United States of America.
This race is on a knife's edge. Today we find out actually who made the cut. If this race is really determined by, whether voters believe that the country's on the right track versus the wrong track, the two presidential candidates have been honing their message to really focus on those key constituencies. Donald Trump's message, very apocalyptic, pessimistic about the state of the country, hoping to tap into voters who are concerned about the economy. And Kamala Harris, just a couple of months after taking over the top of the ticket from Joe Biden, offering a more optimistic, hopeful version of the future in hopes of giving Democrats the keys to the White House for another 4 years. And so how voters interpret those messages across the battleground states, 7 swing states that are basically tied at this point in Bloomberg News Morning Consult polling, will determine who gets the keys, not just to the White House, but to Congress as well.
Zach, good morning to you. Just run us through the closes. I mean, these swing states are going to be critical. Just the theater of the closes on how quickly we may well get an indication from some of those swing states. Some will come, we hope, tonight, but others may take a little bit longer.
That's right. We'll start to see the first polls close in the 6 o'clock hour in Indiana, Kentucky, not exactly swing states. Probably expect to see some very early calls there in those heavily Republican states. In the 7 o'clock hour, we'll start to see polls close in places like Florida, Ohio, Virginia, that are traditionally more swing states but have moved toward the respective parties over the years. The Harris campaign expects that results in places like Michigan will start to get some results tonight, but certainly places like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania could take a lot longer. Trump, when he was declared the winner in 2016, we knew the results before daybreak the next day. But when Biden unseated Trump in 2020, it took 4 days for the results to get called. I expect something in the middle is likely when we'll see the result this time, given how narrow the race is and the fact that mail-in voting continues to be a popular form of casting ballots across the country, though probably not quite as much as it was during the pandemic.
Unless there's a big win from someone, and it looks very unlikely, this election is going to be contested. What does that look like?
Right. I mean, you see Trump preparing the ground for contesting the election. He's done that by, contesting various lawsuits in Pennsylvania over voter registrations. There's been a sea of disinformation put out there. And I think there's really no doubt that Trump could try to claim that he's won today before we really know whether all the votes have been counted and what the outcome is. And that could drag this process out unless there is a huge margin for Harris and that she wins this decisively. If there's it comes down to Pennsylvania where, the race looks really tight and it comes down to just a few thousand voters, this could drag out for quite a while and could be very contested.
What we saw in 2020 is what we're going to see again this year. Donald Trump came out between 3 a.m. in the morning, our time, here in the UK and in Ireland, and he declared that he had won. He said, that's it. Now, he was trying to preempt, in fact, what then happened, that the vote shifted to Biden and gave Biden the victory. He may do the same thing this time. He will, if he is losing, whether it's narrow or even more substantial, he will almost certainly declare this a rigged election. He will put pressure on state legislators, on state governors to flip the results. He will file series after series of legal cases. He will put pressures on Republican legislators in Congress to block the certification of Kamala Harris. But here's what is different this time. If his supporters go out on the streets and if they pursue violence, will Trump call them off, or will he, as he did on January 6, 2021, stay silent or even support those who come out and carry out violence as patriots? I hope we don't get to that point, but that's the one we have to be prepared for.
Look, a lot of the positioning and nervousness is focused in FX space in the dollar. The dollar is seen still as the cleanest way to play this election. On a Trump win, you get a stronger dollar. On a Harris win, you get a weaker dollar. And it's being played out through various currency pairs, one of which I want to talk about is the Chinese yuan. Dollar CNH and dollar CNY, the 1 week implied option volatility is at record levels. We are really, I guess, preparing for the fact that a Trump win could mean that U.S.-China relations in terms of tariffs really goes to, I guess, another level more than what we saw the tariff escalation in the previous Trump regime. We also have seen elevated levels in dollar MEX, the Mexican peso, as Trump has reiterated, even just yesterday, his move on tariffs in Mexico. And then the third currency pair that has seen stretch volatility is euro dollar. Again, the European economy is very much exposed to tariffs, not even that, but the planned defense spending that possibly a Trump administration could force European governments to spend more on defense. In terms of other markets, the equity market, the S&P 500, we've seen bearish hedges come into play, so investors looking for downside protection there. But it's been more nuanced when it comes to the equity picture. We've seen crypto stocks, those are at heightened volatility levels. Trump win could seen as pro-regulation in terms of crypto assets. And then on the Harris win side, we've seen a surge in implied volatility for clean energy stocks. That is a more of a Harris trade there. When it comes to the Treasury market, we have seen a lot of de-risking over the last few sessions, especially yesterday when this Trump trade was a bit unwound in the market, Caroline. So perhaps this the de-risking in Treasuries means that we could see a big surge in volumes later today, this evening, tomorrow morning, perhaps, when a winner becomes clear and investors are more willing to reestablish those positions in the Treasury market. So keep an eye out for that as well.
Where does Europe stand on Harris and Trump?
Yeah, so listen, Tom, what we sort of talk about a great deal is about sort of the impact and obviously very differing views on NATO and Ukraine between these two candidates. This is one of the sort of top issues for Europeans. Of course, there is also the question of trade and tariffs. We've had a lot of research out saying that basically that 10% tariff that Trump has threatened could shave 1 percentage point off of growth of GDP in Europe from the United States. And of course, there is this crucial question of competitiveness that we're dealing with here in Europe. And really, no matter what the outcome of the U.S. election is, this is going to be a sore point, because both of these presidents potentially are more protectionist, as Joe Biden was. But what we got also was a poll from the different nations within Europe. And the question was, if you were to vote in the American election, who would you vote for? And it's interesting, basically what you see, these are the sort of two extremes that we got in Europe. It seems like the further north you go in Europe, and Denmark, Finland, Sweden are all pro-Kamala Harris. You can see that Denmark 85%, Finland 82%, Sweden 81%. Serbia, the most supportive nation in Europe for President Donald Trump, coming in at 59%. Hungary and Bulgaria not too far behind. What I think is interesting is they actually also conducted this poll in Russia, where you had the number there. The support for Donald Trump was 43%, and for Harris was 12%. So actually lower than you saw from some of these other Eastern European countries.
The stakes for this election for countries like Russia, Ukraine, China, the Middle East, Mexico are just enormous because of the stark differences between Trump and Harris on foreign policy. You see that Putin and Russia intelligence agencies in the United States have recently accused them, just yesterday, of fomenting disinformation, spreading fake manufactured videos and fake articles designed to undermine faith in the electoral process. And they warned that they would continue to do that, and that this risked violence in the United States. I think that Russia wants chaos in the United States. That's, the intelligence agencies have said that they favor Trump, and I think that is true. But I think what Putin really wants is to have the whole process, in total chaos for months. And that would undermine, in particular, U.S. support for Ukraine. He is hoping for a Trump presidency because he believes that Trump will not continue to support Ukraine on the level that the Biden administration has. Harris has made it very clear her strong support for Ukraine and that she would continue to give aid for as long as it takes. So I think that the stakes are incredibly high.